Hey friends, it's Kevin. Welcome to the Kevin Dairaghi Show. Today's guest is Laura Alamery. Laura is this nationwide powerhouse speaker, coach, investor. She started in Hawaii, moved to St. Louis, is now down in Florida. You're going to love her accent. You're going to love her stories. She has a diverse and deep history of real estate investing going back into the 90s, real estate going back into the 80s. So seeing how that's evolved, the changes of words and all that stuff, you guys are going to love it. And Laura, thank you so much for doing this. Let's get into our conversation. All right, guys, welcome back. And today our special guest is Laura Alamery. Laura, how are you?
Thank you for having me here today, Kevin. I'm doing great.
Did I say your name okay, or did I butcher it?
No, you said it perfectly, Alamery.
Whew, boy, that's a little tough. Well, I have known you for a lot of my real estate life, right? So you have been a nationwide investor. You spent a lot of time in St. Louis, and now you're a nationwide coach, primarily for women. Am I correct?
Yes, we are.
So why do you focus on women?
Well, I coached many women for many years, and then a few years ago, it was brought to my attention while I was speaking on a stage for a real estate convention that I was the only woman speaking about real estate. And so the editor of the magazine, Realty 411, she said, you should consider really focusing on women because women seem to have different type of fears, limiting beliefs, and so forth, and they don't feel like they are heard or supported. So I gave it some thought. This was probably about 7, 8 years ago, and then decided to really just specialize on women.
Interesting. Well, I am a big fan of, right, niches. Riches are in the niches, so that makes a lot of sense. I've actually seen a huge push in recent, I would like to say years, but really like in the past year, a stronger emphasis of like investor and women investors and more niche groups for women. And you actually, this wasn't supposed to go this early on this, but one of the things you just said there, Laura, was women have different fears.
Mm-hmm.
Explain that.
Sure. Well, women, first of all, they don't trust themselves. They are raised to be a little different, more like nurturing, more like listening to other people, asking for permission. And they tend not to trust themselves. And I see that there is a lot of fears there. A lot of, I don't want to step out of my boundaries, or I need to have the support and the permission. And what I always tell the women that come to us is say, don't forget, this is your dream. It's not necessarily your spouse's, your father, your brother, your friend's dream. It's your dream. So you have to safeguard what you want, and you don't have to ask for permission, ask for support.
So when you got started in real estate, how did that happen? Did you have a coach? Did you have a passion? What was it?
Well, this was way back in the 80s. So actually, I kind of stumbled into real estate. I was living in Hawaii at the time. And
yeah, boy, that's a tough gig there. Jeez.
I was living in Hawaii and I was going through college. Actually, I originally came from Italy. People wonder about my accent. So I came from Italy in 85. And in 87, while I was in Hawaii going through college, I was looking for a way to have kind of a side flexible business that could pay for college and don't get student loans. And I stumbled into real estate. I really was just allowed to go see open houses on Sundays. And I remember walking into this open house in Hawaii near Diamond Head, and it was just beautiful. It had one of those infinity pools that spilled almost into the ocean. And it was built on the side of the mountain. So you had all these different layers. And the broker there was also the owner of the house, but he owned several of them. And so I said, okay, how do you do this, right? And he says, well, I buy these homes in foreclosure, fix them up, and then sell them. And I said to him, is this even a business? I mean, can you do that? And so he told me about reading some of the books, and I went to get a real estate license because I didn't understand a lot of the language yet. I just came from Italy. And so I got licensed in Hawaii in 87. And it was a wild ride at that time because Hawaii real estate was literally doubling in values. Between 87 to 89, prices went up 100%. And so I was during this crazy time as a real estate agent. But at the same token, I kind of stepped into investing because I was doing house hacking, as they call it nowadays. And I actually flipped my first contract in 91, which was a probate property. I was walking away from this deal because I was buying it for myself, but we got to move to the mainland. Instead, one of the agents in the office has flipped the contract and I made $75,000. And that was kind of my start into real estate investing from being an agent. So I really formally started in 91.
Man, well, that usually gives you a nice little head start, right?
Right.
Nice little wholesale deal for 75 grand, something
Yep.
that some people work really hard for a year and they're like, oh, I'll just move some paper.
Yeah. So, yeah, but that was kind of what got me started, interested in investing. But I had been reading and, watching the late night infomercial like a lot of people did back then. And
Are you a Carlton Sheets kind of guy?
I bought their first course, Carlton Sheets. I bought Robert Allen, Dave Delgado. I bought Russ Whitney. I bought all those late night infomercial and their books. And then I started reading in the 90s. They came out with books, Dean Graziosi. So I read all of that.
Fantastic. So the biggest book that we've noticed in our conversation so far is Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Carlton Sheets on the late night, I think, is coming in second. But all those other names actually have not been brought up yet. So interesting. That's fun. It's kind of fun to see what is it that got people started or hooked into the business.
Right.
So 91, nice. And I also love when people from Hawaii or visit talk about the mainland. It's like, oh yeah, the rest of us over here. Yeah, different world.
Yeah.
So where did you move when you did come back to the mainland?
Yeah, my ex-husband was in the Army, was in the military. So that's why I was in Hawaii in the first place. And we moved to Missouri. We moved to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, which is about 2.5 hours from St. Louis. And back then, there was nothing there. Absolutely nothing. The house that we bought, that was kind of fun, in Pulaski County, was the most expensive house ever sold. And was $185,000. Yeah, we had this 5,000 square foot house with 2 kitchens, custom built Tudor home on top of a hill. It was just gorgeous, right? But we came from Hawaii where I just sold my house for almost 500,000. So I had to reinvest the money. Anyway, so I was sitting there and I was looking around. There was a military base and a Walmart. That's it. And there was not really a lot of real estate to do anything with. Even as an agent, I went to work as an agent. They said the average commission is $500. And I'm like, there's no way. So I had been reading and informing myself through late night infomercial and courses and books. And I said, I'm going to give this real estate investing thing a try. And so I stepped into, buying rentals actually in St. Louis because I made some research. We didn't have internet back then. So the research was done the old fashioned way. But I did some research and it seemed like St. Louis was offering the most as far as rentals. There were different universities there. There were older buildings. So I started investing in St. Louis rental. And my goal was pretty aggressive. I wanted to get at least $5,000 in rental income within a year, which in 91, $5,000 was good money. And so my goal was to buy a property a month for a year. So in about 18 months, I actually had doubled that. I made $10,000 in passive income. And I owned about over 40 doors, and all of them in St. Louis, anywhere from University City to Central West End. That now I kick myself for having sold any of those buildings, and then a lot on the South Side.
Nice, like South City or South County?
South City.
Yep. So you like the brick and you like older homes?
Well, I like the multifamilies. So my focus was 2 and 4 units. I also had a 6 and an 8 unit. Which, like I said, I kicked myself for not having kept those because I bought an 8 unit on McPherson right in the middle of Central West End for $200,000, totally rented. I don't even want to know what it's worth right now.
That sounds good. So have you gone back to any of those houses to see what they're worth?
No, because it's painful. You think in the Loop in University Drive, I owned a 6 unit, 3-bedroom units each for $160,000. So the thing is, this is like, I started buying all these properties, and through the process of buying, when you go out there in the field and start doing things, you stumble into other things. Mm-hmm. So I started stumbling into what they called back then flipping contracts, which nowadays called wholesaling. And I keep telling people, wholesaling is kind of a newer term. Back then we used to call it flipping contracts. And I kind of became like the wholesale pioneer in St. Louis. I started wholesaling before anybody was doing it. And so I started wholesaling flipping the contracts that I didn't want to buy for myself as rentals. That's where I started.
Now, did you focus on like probates or foreclosures, or was there a certain niche that you're finding your houses from?
Not really. In the beginning, I went for the low hanging fruit. I went for whatever was on the MLS that had been on there for a while, like aging listings. And as I was out there in the field talking with people, I also got a lot of REOs, especially from local banks in St. Louis. Mm-hmm. And these are all, by the way, golden nuggets. That's why I have a golden nugget here in my background. My daughter actually gave it to me for Christmas because she said, you always drop these golden nuggets. But the thing is I really just started MLS, aging active listings, and talking to small banks and credit union, like Arsenal Credit Union, St. Louis Community Credit Union, and so forth. And pretty much just anything they had on their portfolios. The tip here is you have to buy the good with the bad. The banks in the beginning tend to sell things to their own clients, but they have things in the quote unquote rough parts of town. And I started getting everything. And the funny thing is I made more money on the things on the rough parts of town than the other stuff, because obviously those properties, I would revamp them, get them rented out, they would cash flowing crazy, and then sell them and make good money.
Good. And you're doing that through the 90s?
I did that in the 2000s too.
Excellent. So, I mean, we call that now turnkey rentals. So basically you made a rental, and were you selling them to local people, or how did you connect the dots?
Yeah, local mainly. We're talking the 90s, so internet was not a big thing. So, putting ads in the paper. And the other thing I started doing is, another golden nugget here. Back in 96, 97, I started putting these ads on the paper where I was inviting people to like a meeting. And I said, hey, come, you want to learn how to invest in real estate? Come and see. So I guess I started coaching in a way. So I would invite people to come see me, put in the Riverfront Times, the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, I would put these ads, and people would come see me, and then I would teach them how to become landlords, and then they would buy my properties.
Well, that's perfect. That's, I mean, we've had some RIAs and meetup groups and stuff like that. I mean, there's so many. Putting yourself in front of the room just gives you so much credibility. It gives you so much. You don't know what you're going to pick up. I remember going to the SSIC is what it's called. It's gone now. But man, that was the meeting that I would go to. And it's like, I'm going to find my next deal, my next cash buyer. Like, you couldn't just Facebook post anything. It was, I got to find the next deal. I'm going to get my lender. I'm going to find my next person through this networking group. I mean,
right.
Do you know Sean McCloskey?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So early on, I listened to some of his stuff. He was one of my first coaches, and he's like, "Hey, if you do these 6 things, I guarantee you'll get a deal." One was like run an ad in the newspaper. So I did that, and you get some crazy people calling. But it is funny. Like, I don't know if I would give that same advice to people now about running ads in the newspaper, but
yeah,
things have changed.
Yeah, back in the day, like I said, the most important things I can say is put yourself out there in the field, talk with people. Even I'd say to people, even to this day, I drive around, here where I am right now, I drive around and stop and talk with people. Don't just drive around like they have the driving for dollars nowadays, so that they call it that way. All this is, by the way, guys, is newer terminology. We've done this forever. Back in the 80s, we used to call it farming. So, you go out there in the field and talk with people. But the thing is this, and I learned this early on in my career in Hawaii back in the 80s. One day, there was this real estate agent, and she was wildly successful, and she barely spoke English. She was from India. She had come to Hawaii, and she only said that she had only $40 in her pocket, and she lived in this gorgeous mansion overlooking the ocean. She had a new BMW every 6 months, and she barely spoke English. So I remember telling her, I said, "What do you do?" And she said, "Tomorrow morning, come here at 8 a.m. in my office." I was like, okay. So I went there and sat next to her. And what she would do, back then, we didn't have PropStream and all this stuff. We had Haynes Directory, which is still online, by the way. You can still access that. It's one of my favorite tools to this day. So back then, it looked like a phone book. And she would literally pick it up, and the areas that she was farming, she would go through this book and call everybody. And it would list the property address and the person name and the phone number. And she would call everybody. And she said in a very broken English, do you want to sell your house? That's it. There was no scripts, nothing magic. And she said to me, I have a focus of having at least 10 conversations. So I even tell to my students today, don't focus on the calls, focus on the conversation. Don't tell me you made 100 calls a day. You could make 10 calls a day, but if you had 10 conversations, that's good. 10 conversation, and out of those 10 conversation, I get at least 3 listing appointments. And out of these 3 listings, I get at least 1 listing. And her listings were all $1 million plus. She dealt only in certain areas. So with that said, she worked by the numbers. So I learned that early on, that to set up a goal, a consistency, to know what your baseline is based on what you're doing, how many do you expect based on what type of lead generation you do, and then hit the target. It's non-negotiable no matter what. And she would tell me some days, she says, I leave at 12 noon, I got my quota. Some days I stay here until 9 p.m. at night. But she said, I'm not leaving until I meet my quota. And she would get anywhere from 5 to 10 listings a month, and they were all $1 million plus. So that's the thing that you have to really set. And I learned that from being around people like her.
I think that's fantastic. So we talk about lead and lag indicators, which is what you're talking about right there. A lot of people are just focused on the end results. How many houses did you buy? How much money did you make? All
Right.
that is a lag indicator, meaning it's something you've got because you're doing the lead things. So like that consistent stuff, we use the term healthy habits. We apply this with life as well. It's like, hey, did you read? Did you read? Did you read your Bible? Did you go for a walk? Did you do your push-ups? Did you, the little things. Dropping down and doing 50 push-ups doesn't change your life unless you do it consistently. Now you're building strength and muscles. Going for a 1-mile walk with a dog is great. But then when you start doing that consistent, now you get to know the neighbors, the houses that are out, plus you're feeling healthy and gives you more energy.
Right.
So I have to ask, all of this sounds amazing. Like if you just read the highlights here, it looks like this phenomenal, just everything is fantastic in your life. I don't know your story, right? But I do know military family, and you did say ex-husband. So I'm imagining if he's at Fort Leonard Wood and you're hanging out in St. Louis all the time, and also, spoiler alert, I do know an ex-husband is coming. How did some of this what all happened on the personal side?
Well, like you said, there's never a straight line or a path up, and I always say that to be a mentor or a coach or inspiration for other people, you have to go through hell and back. So I did that a few times. So I was building up the business in St. Louis. I was also going for my master's degree in St. Louis, my MBA at Webster University, because I had spare time on top of it having 3 small children.
Why not, right? Just add it in. Yeah.
And there were 2.5 hours drive each way, which I was doing 7 times a week. During my drive, I would use it to listen to tapes, and really stay focused in what I was doing. And I was building my real estate, quote unquote, empires in St. Louis. But I also bought into, I have a degree. I had a University of Hawaii, I got a degree in accounting, and then I was going for my MBA. So you have to go to corporate jobs. You have to get security. You have to get benefits. You have to do that. So I bought into that. And so I went to work in a corporate job in St. Louis, and I really had a really good job. And it was in international finance. And then I went into metal commodities. So I was working this while I was doing real estate, while I was getting an MBA and having 3 small children. So I did it all. It came to a point in 95. I was still married at this time. I came to a point in 95 that I said to myself, what am I doing? At this point, I was making 3 times more from real estate than I was doing with my corporate job, and I had a good job. And I was working, 1/3, 1/4 of the time, because I was working 8 hours a day, and then I was doing 2-3 hours in the evening for real estate. And I said to myself, what am I doing? Just imagine if I could dedicate all this time to real estate instead of this job. And I'm already making 3 times as much. The other thing is I couldn't see, I guess I hit 30 at that point. So I couldn't see doing this for the next 30 years of my life. And I was like, I'm paying for kids in the daycare all the time. Somebody's telling me when I can take off, and I cannot travel. I cannot have independence. So I guess I always tell people, you hit a point in your life where there's no option B, where it becomes so painful to stay where you are right now that you have to do something. And that happens in relationships too. I'm on my 3rd marriage, by the way. Happens in relationships too, that you get to a point where if I don't walk away from this relationship, I don't know what I'm going to do. And so I got to the point with my job and I was like, okay, so what do I do here to transition from corporate? Because I wanted to make sure I had the safety. My marriage was also having problems. So I knew that maybe something was coming where I had to support me and my children. And so first of all, I gave myself a deadline. I said 6 months. In 6 months, I walk out of here. So that was the first thing I did. Second thing I did, I made a decision, right? So I need to do what I need to do to make this work. So during my commute to work, I had moved to St. Louis at the time with my husband. During my commute was only 45 minutes to work. During my lunch hour, I'm going to sit in the car and eat a sandwich and make my phone calls. During my breaks during the day, go to the bathroom, but then I make another phone call. So, and in the evening, I put the kids to bed and spend an hour, 2 hours working. So I did what I had to do because the third thing I wanted to do is I had to build a consistent income. At this point, I already sold several of my rental properties, like those two gorgeous buildings, University Drive and on McPherson. So I was kind of rebuilding. The reason I sold them is because my husband was going to move to New York, professor at West Point, and I was going to move with him. So I decided I was going to start phasing out. But in 95, I decided, why not? I'm always chasing this dream, but nobody's supporting my dream. And so I made a decision. I had to make at least $10,000 a month net in order for me to quit my job. And I was making a lot less than that, but that's what I was comfortable with. So I made a decision, gave myself 6 months, did what I had to do, and $10,000 were non-negotiable. So by the end of December of 95, I had hit the target and I quit my job. I just walked out of there, never looked back. So after that, I went into full real estate, rentals, already started accumulating more rentals, flipping contracts, wholesaling, 10 plus deals a month. And then in 2001 came something else where I got into private money and syndication. And then 2001, 2002, my business literally doubled overnight. At that point, I was doing over 10 wholesale deals a month, but we were fix and flip 20 plus properties at a time, mainly on the south side of South City. And and then 2007 happened. So that was another big slump, right? So like everybody else, I was in denial first. I had a great business. I told the people, I had the cars. I had a personal shopper at Saks Fifth Avenue, Plaza Frontenac. I was doing so amazing. And then 2007 happened. And like a lot of people, I went in denial. I was like, oh, it will blow over. This is fine. But the thing is that I didn't do is reinvent myself. I was doing the same things and obviously wondering why they were not working. Instead of you have to reinvent yourself. It took me about 2 years to come to that aha moment, So now I'm very quick at reinventing myself when something happens, like when COVID happened and what's happening right now with inflation and everything. I reinvent myself all the time. And but back then, I kind of got caught like a deer in the headlights. I just stopped. I didn't do anything for 2 years and lived off of my savings and sold some of the properties I had. And then 2009, I was like, what am I going to do here? I have to get back into real estate. And so I started looking around me and I saw the pre-foreclosure prevention and short sales was the thing. There were so many foreclosures back in 2009. And that's where I stumbled into pre-foreclosure and short sales. But like when I make a decision to do something, I do 1,000% or nothing. So like even with coaching, with real estate, with anything. So I remember it was 1 week before Thanksgiving in 2009. And people at the holidays think, nothing is happening with real estate right now. Everybody's, out doing anything. I decided I was going to go into short sales. And I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know much about it. So I got training like me. I found somebody that had been very successful. There was a guy, I don't know if you know him back then, it was called the Short Sale Kid. He was out of Tampa, Florida, and he had over 100 short sales under contract. So he was a 28-year-old. And so I said, okay, I don't remember where I saw that, but I got into his training. I flew to Vegas because he was having a convention there. And going to Vegas in 2009, I just came back from Vegas like 3 days ago. But in 2009, it was really depressing. I mean, you could see the recession. The casino was handing out coupons to people on the street to go play inside for free. And
Jeez.
yeah, so I went there and But this guy, he was doing amazing. And I met other people in the room who were doing amazing. So I was like, well, if it works for them, it's going to work for me. So I basically applied what they were doing. I talked to them. I got trained, came back. By the end of the year, in 2009, I had over 30 short sales under contracts, over 30 in about 5 to 6 weeks. And so then I was back in doing it. And so then I got back into obviously full swing. And people started asking me, how do you do this? How do you do that? And that's when I really started coaching. But that's kind of my up and down story there. And through that, yes, I had personal things like divorces. But, I'm very good at compartmentalizing things as far as not letting certain things affect my life and my livelihood and the life of my children. So, and now, as you know, my daughter, she's with me, my oldest daughter. We wrote the book together, which is back here. And this is basically interviews of other women that have inspired me in my life. From the one where I got started back in the 80s, I learned a lot from the first two women that in Hawaii really pushed me. But the thing is, it's about really making a decision, a choice, and doing it for the right reasons too. I've seen, as you've seen too in real estate, it can get really greedy. There are a lot of people there that lose themselves. And for a minute I did too, meaning the money comes in and you go and live this extravagant lifestyle. And sometimes, you lose focus on what you do it for. But thank God, honestly, the 2007 happened because it put me back into the right perspective.
Did you lose any houses or have negative deals through that?
Yes. Yeah. Well, because I was dealing with a lot of private money, I had a lot of investors. So that's the other thing. Be very transparent with the people you work with. I was always very good at being transparent, at keeping relationships, keeping contacts. Because when 2007 happened, I had to sit down with them. At that point, I had 17 investors in St. Louis that had given me money. And we were doing over 20 fix and flips at that point. And I sat down with them and I said, guys, okay, and women too. I said, you have two choices here. You can liquidate and see what we can get, or you can turn these into rentals and I'm just giving this property back to you. And that's what we did. And honestly, there was nobody getting mad, no threatening lawsuits, nothing. It was very amicable and everybody did. Where I know a lot of our investors had to file bankruptcy, had to, skip the country. I know a couple of suicides happened. And it's because of all that. There was not like that, but it's because over the years, I've always been super transparent with them. And we always had monthly meetings. I always told them everything was going on with their money and their properties. So they trusted me, and that trust you cannot buy, right? And that's what it was very amicable. So we didn't lose homes. We just converted a lot into rentals. And then we started selling them about 10 years ago. Now they're all sold out, that particular package. But yeah, that's how it happened.
Excellent. Hey, friends, Kevin Dairaghi. I just want to say a quick thank you to all of our vendors, our sponsors that help make this show possible. So we got Lois Mans with Farmers Insurance. We got Greg Mans with Upright Construction. We have CRS Property Management, Adam Droege and his team. We have Red Maples Construction, Jason Hudson and those guys. Who are actually currently doing multiple houses for me right now. And we also have Tom and Peter over at Essex Mortgage. These guys all together is the team that I personally use on my projects, on my houses, in my friendships. Like this is the team when you're getting into real estate that I hope you get to also work with. So I want to say thank you to you guys for sponsoring our show and kind of getting all this out there for us. So our three tenets here is the most important real estate is between your ears, your personal drives your professional, and it's all about relationships.
Yeah.
What's funny is a couple of your comments that you talked about, I have an episode that you just underlined things in it that you didn't even know it. One is about burning the boats. It's been super popular, but it's one of those, like, sometimes you gotta, like, hey, there is no plan B. I am going to go be successful and this is what it's going to be. Success isn't what it used to be. Like for me, I want to be a successful father, right? I want to be a successful husband. I want to be, it's not just titles. It's not just money. It's all these other relationships that you have. And then the other one, so our episode was about Eads Bridge, but it's Dream Forge Finish, right? There was a vision that they wanted to connect east to west, right? So you talked about your vision, right? Your dream to, I'm going to do this. These are my non-negotiables. I'm going to have so much passive. Like you you did it. You laid it out. And then the next part is forge. So in the case of each bridge, the common materials to make each bridge is here in St. Louis. I don't know if you remember this one, but it's a fascinating story, really. But the building material there was wood, stone, and iron. But where it had to go is over a mile long. It had to be so tall, fast moving current, and the materials just couldn't do it. So what had to happen was iron had to turn into steel, and you do that under pressure. You do that putting in good things, additives, taking out bad things, impurities, right? And then now you created something that's a lot stronger, character-wise, etc., that can make the journey elsewise to build. So one, building that bridge, the guy who helped refine that got into steel and then went into railroads and then went into structural steel and started building all the cities. That happens to be Andrew Carnegie. So it was actually on that difficult part about solving this bridge. Because of that, he was able to solve a lot and build a lot more empire and all this other stuff. So all of that said, talk about a long start of a question. What would be your forging moments, Laura? So the moments where you're like, man, why did I make this decision? What am I doing? Do I keep doing this? You know, do you have those moments where you're just in the crucible, just burning, going like, what do I do here? Like those moments that really build the character are like, no, screw it. I'm going to forge ahead. There is no plan B.
Wow, I have so many of those.
I think anybody in business for a while, like,
Yeah.
but it's those moments that give you the credibility when you stand in the front of the room, go like, heck yeah, you need to listen to her. Like, it's those forging moments that give you the credibility, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the main thing is, like, as you know, real estate is so multifaceted. There's so many ways to make money in real estate. But the biggest thing is you have to find what at any given time is your passion. And I think with real estate, it has to be about the passion of what you're doing. Like when I started, I was a real estate agent, in Hawaii, and I loved doing that. And then when I got into rentals, because I wanted the passive income, I did that. So I having the passion of what you're doing at the moment. And when I get quote unquote bored with what I'm doing, and people say to them all the time, how can you get bored? You're making money. But the thing is, like with wholesaling, I got bored, I do it now throughout what I'm doing, which is something else. But the thing is, I get bored and then I lose my passion in it. And so that's the thing. You have to be true to yourself or what you do. At any point of your life, you need to change based on where you are. And I see a lot of people in real estate investing that do it just, like I said, for the money and just don't follow their passion because they don't trust themselves. And like everybody else, I was there too. The first 10, 15 years of my career, I really didn't trust myself. I trusted what other people were doing, what other people were saying. But the thing is, you come into a point in your life where you say, why am I doing this? What is it behind it, beside the money? Why am I into this 40 years later? And that to me, you come through, experience. Because the thing is, once you get in real estate and you start really making a lot of money for whatever process you're doing, wholesaling, whatever, fix and flip, and you lose yourself for a minute. You do. You buy into having a nice car or spending money on the nice house or having the designer clothes and all of that. You do that. And that's fine. But the thing is, you come to a point that, is that what it's all about, or is there something else to it? And I think, like I said, 2007 for me was that pivoting year because, 2007 was like a lot of real estate investor is. I had the Porsche, I had the Hummer, I had the clothes, I had the trips, I had everything I wanted. And I was probably the saddest, most miserable person there was, and my second marriage too, that didn't help. But the thing is, I was there. And so I had to make a decision. Granted, it took me 2 years to come to the aha moment to say, okay, what am I about? What am I doing? Why am I doing this? Should I find another profession, another job, or do something else? Because my heart at that point wasn't in it. And I had seen other people that were, quote unquote, my best friends and mortgage brokers and title companies that got indicted, that ended up in jail, and I'm sure if I threw names there, exactly what I'm talking about. I know people that killed themselves, because they were losing money. And these are people that were like, we were willing and dealing together all the time, millions of dollars. But they didn't have the aha moment when 2007 happened and they lost everything and everybody was suing them. They just got greedy. They just got crazy. With me, what did I do? I took a step back. And that's why I say sometimes you have to step away from it. Step away from it and look at your life and say, what the heck am I doing here? Why am I doing it? I did that in 95. I did that in 2007. And the best thing you can do in those moments is take your foot off the pedal, and just take a step back. And at that time was it for 2 years where I really didn't do anything. And I did the odds and ends here and there, just to keep myself busy. Like I said, I sold some of the real estate, even at a loss, because I needed the money and right now my savings. But then and when I came back to it, you have to come back with it with a different vision. So when I came back 2009, I said to myself, I'm not going to come back like I was before. If I have to be the Laura that was before, I have to come back a Laura 2.0. And the thing is, I said, how do I want my life to go on from now to this point on? And I came back, I went into pre-foreclosure prevention and short sale because honestly, I really wanted to help people. I saw around me a lot of people, they were like vultures taking advantage of elderly and other people that wanted to save their house or wanted something out of their equity. And so I went in to prevent that from happening. And through that course, once you go in for the right reason, you put a heart in the right place, other things develop. And that was the start of a second part of my life. That's what it did for me. And then part of that was to move to Florida because that was the other thing. I says, I'm going to go and live in a place I always wanted to go to live, which was near the ocean and go out on my boat and things like that. That's what I wanted to be. And I did it. And real estate supported me through all this journey. But the thing is, within real estate, you have to be careful where you reinvent yourself. And that's why I think I survived the test of time, because I tell people, I started when Ronald Reagan was president, guys. I was like, and I was here when the Gulf War started in 91, when 9/11 happened, when 2007 happened, when COVID hit. I was here for all of that. But I think the test of time was because I stopped, took a deep breath, analyzed where I was and what I wanted, and wanted to be true to myself. And that's when I reinvented myself in the business, and I was able to go over to the next phase.
You bring up this question, which, one, I love your story, right? Of those forging moments and redefining and reinventing yourself. I want to take some words that I think we throw around. I think you and I both do this, right? Because we're talking about no plan B, forge ahead, right? Go, do this. And then now we're saying, well, you have to reinvent, or pivot is another word that's popular. Well, it's like the difference between like strategies. Like there's a strategic and there's a tactical mission, right? And that's where I think people sometimes get that mistaken. If you're banging your head against a wall trying to go one way, it's okay to walk around the wall. Like just look around and realize, okay, that door is closed. What else is available? Talk about that in some of your path there, because you talked about all these major things. She was on her way she lives in New York City. She was in her way to work and the planes hit. And it's just like, from her perspective, think of it this way. She ended up losing her house because her job was in the trade center world, right? She lost her job. She lost her ability to pay. There wasn't really a support system. So that's how she learned how to do short sales and help, because she was directly involved. But she lost her house because of these terrorists. Like, I don't know those stories. Like, because to us, it's a news channel away. But it's like, wow, once you feel these people's lives and how that actually became a forging moment for her to turn around and help other people go through, just like you're talking about the passion for real estate. When I had my, like when I was doing 10 houses a month, that type stuff, I had all the workers, all the employees, the management, all the people watching. It lost my love of it because I loved seeing the transformation. I loved all the people. What did I get? I got all the paperwork back in the office, so it was like, and I got burnt out because I was playing with the wrong stuff. Did you have part of that in your process?
Yeah, I mean, the thing with me that I was always being I micromanage to this day. That's one of my pet peeves. And I was always granted I had some help doing things, but the thing is, I've always been so much hands-on with everything. And that was another thing I had to learn to step away. And there's other people that can actually do the job better than you can, certain things. So, but yeah, I definitely had to struggle with that. But one of the things I want to talk about the pivoting part. 2 years ago, I was in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I met Dean Graziosi. And he said a story that to me stuck to me, an analogy. He said that when you learn about pivoting, because he was talking about himself, how he pivoted in 2007, 2008, about teaching what he was teaching about real estate. And he says, one of the things about pivoting, he says, imagine this, when Titanic was sinking, if you had been there selling lifeboats, you would have made a ton of money. I mean, everybody would have given everything they had to buy that lifeboat. If you had been there selling tickets to the next crossing, you would have lost everything, right? So that's the thing that you have to think about. So I always tell everybody, what is your lifeboat right now in real estate? What is the next thing that people need based on what they're going through right now in the world, right? So that's what helps me. Dean said that to me 2 years ago. And that stuck with me because now as I realize what I've done, I always reinvent myself because I'm always looking for the lifeboat. And that was the thing that I did. And honestly, I started that in 2007, but that was my biggest aha moment. What is the lifeboat when it comes to real estate right now? And I feel like a lot of people keep selling the same things. And you have to see what people are at. We're dealing with different things right now. We're dealing with inflation. We're dealing with people being scared of what is going on, but not necessarily that they don't have the money, because trust me, go to Vegas, people have the money right now. They throw it out there like there's burning a hole in their pockets. But the thing is, people have the money, but right now they're scared where they're going to put the money. And the other thing is, one of my daughters was telling me there is the lipstick theory. And I was like, what's the lipstick theory? She said, when we start going through economic downturns, recession, and things like that, lipstick sales go up because women go out there and buy lipsticks to feel better. They don't want to spend money on big purchases, but I spend $10, $20 on a lipstick and feel better. So the lipstick sales go up, which by the way, recently have gone up a lot. So the thing is, that's what is called a lipstick theory. And I Googled it and it's actually a thing online. But that's the thing. So you have to kind of recognize those signs. Are the lifeboats? Are lipstick sales going up? And then what are you going to do about it as a real estate investor? How are you going to fill the void and help people to overcome what they're doing and actually help them in the process instead of selling your program, instead of trying to be a vulture over people's misfortunes when they start losing their house.
I was just having this conversation where people thought same thing, right? Real estate investors, oh, you're just targeting the people like you said, vultures, right? Oh, you're just targeting these people and just taking advantage of, and it's like, no, that's not what it is. But we do have the lifeboat of their life. They're on the Titanic and we're trying to give them a way out. It's the same stuff that good people and bad people do, but it's one of those, like, I believe it's the intent behind what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it made me happy to hear you saying, like, I want to help people. And sometimes knowing where to go, hey, you need to get a short sale. Hey, this is the way to go. And if you're helping them make the best decision for them, that's awesome. People need a guide for that. And then flip that, like coaching wise, is coaching your main gig right now?
It's about 50-50. I do flips. I mean, what I'm doing right now, I do fix and flip on higher end homes. I live in Boca, Palm Beach. So the cheapest houses here are about $1 million. So I do that side. So I do a few a year like that. And honestly, it's kind of the same as fix and flip, less, but you make a lot more money. And I wholesale anything that I don't want to work. I come across a lot of stuff. I have agents bringing me things all the time down here, and I flip the rest.
Are you still an agent?
No, I've not been an agent for 15 years.
So how did your daughter Liz get involved in your business?
So she actually started working as my assistant back in the 15 plus years, about 10 to 12 years ago. And she had no interest in real estate. And so she started, because one of her degrees is in marketing. She started working for some of my students. They were doing high volume. They needed some help with social media. And she always tells the story. She ran across one of my students, was a man actually. His name was Cliff in Atlanta, Georgia. And he was co-wholesaling properties. And he was posting 90 plus properties a month on his social media. He had built a really good social media network. And so he had a lot of buyers and followers. And so he was posting all of this, and then whatever he sold, he would make 50%. but he didn't look for properties. He just got very good at just posting over people's properties. And my daughter was working with him. And so she asked him, how do you do that? And he's like, why don't you ask your mom? She's the one who taught me.
Yeah.
And so she got interested in 2015 and she wholesaled her first deal and actually was in St. Louis and made about $19,000 on that one. And then from then on, she got hooked and she does wholesaling strictly right now. She helps me with some of my fix and flip, but she's more learning on that aspect. But yeah, so that's how she got started. But she didn't have any interest until she saw what other people were doing. She said, I want a piece of that action.
It's different when it's your parent, and that's, so I got 3 boys we were talking earlier, and I'm trying to get them in. I'm like, hey, come to the rehab. Like, hey, can you do this social media for me? Can you? And they don't get it all yet, and it's one of those like,
yeah,
like, I wish you saw this because it'd be really cool, but they got to learn it on their own.
Right. And it's not for everybody. I have 4 children, 3 girls and 1 boy. Now, my son, who lives also here in Delray Beach, he owns his own house and he's like, I would like to get into some fix and flips. And so now he is kind of coming around. So we're going to get into fix and flip together, probably something more in the $500,000 to $700,000 range, which here is cheaper. And
so affordable housing.
Housing here. But we're going to get into that. But he's starting to see, he owns his own house and then he's looking to buy another one, but he wants to keep his house and rent it out. And he's 5 minutes from the beach, so he could probably do an Airbnb or a short-term rental. But the thing is, so he's starting to see, but other than that, my other 2 daughters, no, they're not interested.
Excellent. Well, actually, I just looked at the time. We're cruising through this. It goes quick once you get going, doesn't it? So I do like to ask if there was any advice you could have given yourself, maybe back in the 80s or early 90s, or really any of that time, right? Knowing what you know now, coaching hundreds of people, etc., and doing all the things. Is there any advice you would have given yourself when you were younger that you wish you would have heard and received?
Yeah, I always say that in real estate, you need a psychology degree more than a real estate license. And I believe that you can also be your best friend or your worst enemy. And I think that I didn't work in a lot of my mindset side of things. I thought that everything had to be done the hard way. And I was good at learning, educating myself as much as I could. We didn't have coaches or mentors really in the 80s and 90s. We had some late night infomercial, but there was not really coaching. And so I was very good though at taking all this information and extracting it. But I didn't have anybody to ask questions to. I had no support. I had my ups and downs and scaring myself out of the business many times. So nowadays you're in a much better environment, everybody, because you have people out there like coaches and support systems and groups that can help you. We didn't have that 30 plus years ago. So that was not my fault. That was there. But I would say I would have worked more on my mindset. Because if I had had the confidence, if I had known about what are limiting beliefs, what are ceilings we put on ourselves and our capabilities, and I could have mastered that and broke through that, I would have had a lot more success earlier on, instead of wasting, quote unquote, 15 years of my life just trying to figure things out on my own and feeling like that's the best I could do. So I would say everybody work on your mindset, work on your whatever is holding you back. Understand that you can be your best friend or your worst enemy if it stops you. And don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help. Because at the end of the day, time is going to go by. And opportunity, what is opportunity cost is what is going to cost you to stay in the same place. And if you're looking at real estate as a tool to live the life that you want, to empower other people, to do and make a difference in the world, there is a reason for that. And, and someday when you end up on your deathbed, you want to look back and said, okay, what have I left in this world as a legacy? In my thing, it's not the real estate, it's not the money. Yeah, that's great. It affords me a great lifestyle. But it's about having made the difference over people's life, having saved them from foreclosures, from short sales, having helped them save their home or rent a house that was sanitary conditions, having helped other women and other men break into the business. So that's my legacy to the world. And that's how I look at it. So, but it all starts from having the mindset that I wish I would have worked earlier on instead of stumbling into it later when life knocked me down.
So, Laura, if people want to get Laura, like, where do they go? Are you on the socials? Do you have websites? Like, where is it that you want people to get to know you?
Well, yes, I have my own website, which is lauraalamery.com. It's kind of my own brand. And then we have realestateinvestingwomen.com. And that's where I have with Liz and Maria. You call her Clea, she's one of our main coaches. She's my right-hand person, actually. So that's where we at. So realestateinvestingwomen.com is our website, and lauraalamery.com if you want to learn more about me personally.
Perfect. And then, so Clea, so she's what, Northern Italian?
Yeah, she's from Milan. I'm from near Venice. So we're about 150 miles from each other.
Do you ever go back or?
Oh, yeah. I went back about a year and a half ago. I would like to go back this year. But yeah, I don't have many people left there anymore because I've been here since 85 and most of my family passed away. Once in a while, I like to go back, definitely.
So I'm Italian, if you didn't pick that up, Dairaghi. We sprinkle the vowels in. But both sides are actually from the we're outskirts of Milan. Never been back. Totally curious about it, but like, I've been Americanized. I don't know it. We grew up on the hill here, or my dad did, but they talk about the dialects. Do you have that issue like when you go back?
Yeah, we have the Venetian dialect. We have 20 different dialects in Italy. And my grandmother, she was from Venice. So she spoke Venetian dialect. She didn't even speak Italian, which is a total different language. So yeah, I grew up, which funny way is very close to Spanish, much closer than even Italian is. So I understand Spanish about 80%, which living here in South Florida helps me, but I cannot speak it, so yeah.
That's awesome. Do you guys ever talk Italian?
Me and Claire?
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
Really?
I think it's because of the real estate terminology. We're so used to speak. I met her because, I think she had a listing or something when I was doing short sales. And then I knew she was short sale negotiator. So she helped me negotiate some short sales. But I met her through the real estate business and we always spoke English. And I think here and there we spoke Italian, but it sounds so funny to us because we don't know how to communicate business-wise, the terminology and everything. I wouldn't even know how to translate a lot of those words in Italian. So we said, hey, give up, we speak English.
Just don't worry about it. It's fine. And then I want to ask you this. When you go through those forging moments, those dark days, the hard questions, right? We all have them. Is there a quote? Is there a passage, a book? Is there something you go for inspiration that tells you to keep going? Is there just something like that you pull to or find solace or faith or whatever it is to do the next level? Keep going.
Yeah, there is so much. I'm a big believer in really, like you said, having a routine and work on your mindset and your belief system. I am a big believer on that. But one of the things that really helped me is you have to step into whoever the person you want to be. Ideally, if you were the best version of yourself, what would you do? What would you say? How would you act? Who would you be with? What would you eat? Everything. And so one of the things I have actually on my phone is pops up on my screen. I said, what will Laura 2.0 do? And actually, they came to me as an idea a few months ago. This one of my students' daughter, they're in real estate together, and they're driving around, and she sent me a picture, and her daughter made a T-shirt that says, what will Laura say? And, what will Laura do as far as real estate? And so that to me was very impactful. First of all, oh my God, you made a T-shirt with my name on it. But
that's me.
But the thing is it is, and this is how I live every day. What will Laura 2.0? My daughter said 3.0, 4.0, because I've changed so many times. But what would the version of yourself, the future version of yourself, do, say, be? And when you step into the version of yourself and you start acting as that version of yourself, then everything else will fall into place for that version. So that's what I live by. What to Laura to.
Love it. And it dovetails so much. So like part of my coaching is like the life side is what really finds passion for me. But we do a life roadmap, which is, so it would be Kevin 0.0, Kevin 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. And what's funny is I don't go over 3 because one guy was like, oh, I'll do my 4.0. It's like, nope, because you can't see over that hill yet.
Right.
Because I thought my early goal, man, if I could be a full-time real estate investor, like, oh my God, that's a dream. Well, it was at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now I've been living here. What's on the other side of that horizon? Sometimes you just you don't know what options are there until you get up to the peak to know like, oh, this is just the first summit. There's more, there's
Right.
more there. But it's one of those, like, it gives you those. I remember I was about to fire somebody and I'm angry and I'm, all this stuff because it was a super close person to me. And I was like, okay, my 1.0 self, real estate investor, is mad because of this. What would the coach say? Well, they would want to make sure, these things. So it's like, oh shit, I got to act as my 2.0 self. Even though my 1.0 self is furious, how can I be this person? Because that's what I want to be remembered as. Not this guy getting frustrated and angry because of a particular deal, but how does the person handle this 2.0 self handle this, which sounds exactly like what you're saying.
Yeah, and that's the most important thing, what you just said. You need to make the decisions and even your own goals and stuff from the version of yourself that is that version. You can't make that decision from where you are right now if that's not what you want to be. And by the way, you're never going to get there. You're never going to be the perfect version. You're never going to get to the perfect goal, because once you get into that path, it's a moving target. And then you're going to realize you want something else, And the thing is, you never do. And I talk to people that are in their 90s. They live in my building. I have a lot of older people, which is another thing. I said, oh, it's a good sign. I have a lot of 90-year-olds. But the thing is that when I talk with them, they still have dreams. They still have goals. They still have things. And that will keep you young. That's what keeps you going. And that's one of the things, but you have to see from the person that you want to be, not from the person you're now. You're not going to make the right decision. So that's really powerful to come to that realization.
That's awesome. Well, Laura, I want to thank you so much for jumping on and having a conversation with us. Clea, when you're listening, I want to say thank you for the introduction. It's great actually having a conversation with a name that I've seen for decades, literally, in the process. So it's nice actually getting to know you. You're doing phenomenal, because Clea's telling me all the stuff that you guys are doing and building. So wonderful with all the impact that you have. So, and I'm happy that you do have some of this life and mindset concept in what you do, because you're wildly successful in all this stuff. Thank you for spending the time jumping on and sharing your wisdom with us and leaving the golden nuggets, right?
I know. Great. Yeah. Thank you for having with me.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Talk soon. I have to admit, that was fantastic. We even had a nice long conversation after the interview there. She really is a wealth of knowledge. We talked about all these books that we both read and just a lot of shared experiences. So fun to talk with her. Key takeaways there. I really liked did you pick up the two stories I thought were really cool? One was about the lipstick theory. So I have to go and look that up. But in times of downturns or something, lipstick sales go up. So because women still want to look pretty, lipstick is a cheaper alternative than buying a new car or buying a new dress or something like that. So the lipstick theory. The other thing about being on the Titanic, and if you focused on selling lifeboats, people would have sold anything to be able to be on that lifeboat, right? Compared if you were looking at selling, tickets to, a night at the museum or whatever it was, like, okay, that person is going to lose everything. And like lose everything, like not only money, but also your life, because you're not on the lifeboat, right? You're going down. So I thought those two really cool stories, analogies that go in there, following her story with her family and basically getting to investing in St. Louis, but also her determination in the non-negotiables, I thought were a really cool facet of her dreaming, right? Her vision of her mind work that she was doing. Hey, I'm going to get $5,000, $10,000 in monthly passive income so I could leave my job, so I could go do this, so I could go do this, right? Whatever it is, what am I going to do to be able to get that? I'm not going to leave this office until my 10 conversations are done. Like some of those healthy habits are the terms we use. And then I also love the concept of what would Laura 2.0 do, right? Which totally jives in with our life coaching that we do. And basically becoming your future self today. So great ideas, great concepts, and a great conversation. Hope you guys enjoyed it too. Talk some more soon. Goodbye.